My name's John. I've been doing sound this past weekend, or this weekend, Friday, yesterday. Yeah, so sound stuff. It is as easy as sometimes turning on a board and just making it work because the singer is awesome, or sometimes it's a struggle because you got the speakers behind all the vocalists, like we do at Coastal right now, and you're trying to kind of have it at concert level. You're trying to figure out how can I make this as loud and as thick as possible without causing feedback and all that stuff. So it varies pretty much. Also, are you just a church with piano and vocals and maybe like a choir, or are you kind of now as genres transitioning in worship music to more not even Christian contemporary, but it's almost journeying into more even like dance music to some degree, right? Backing tracks are almost every band is now using backing tracks. What do you do with that? All this stuff. So we have an hour, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna depend on the Holy Spirit to kind of guide me with where to go with stuff, and because I can't target you guys all specifically, but I'm gonna try. So let's just start with the foundations. 7 minutes early, and let's pray because I want to be able to do this as good as possible for all you guys. And I take sound really seriously because at the end of the day, without us, without sound people, much of the service doesn't really happen unless we have these beautiful amphitheaters and all this stuff, which doesn't exist anymore. We need God to empower us with skill and good attitudes and everything. So let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for today. Thank you that you allow us to serve your church through our giftings. God, I pray that you would fill this whole team here with your Spirit to empower them with better ears, ability to mix, ability to problem solve, and to just serve your church better, God. So I thank you for your Spirit. I thank you for your Son. And thank you, Father. Amen. All right, let's start with sound seminar. So I named it When to Use What Tools. That was the first thing that came to mind. I'm not sure that's going to be, but that's whatever. So I'm not really huge on PowerPoints either because I'm pretty ADD and I have a Red Bull in me, or I'm starting to. So we'll see. We'll go. Is this too loud, or is this good, or we're good? You might get beat in the face. Sorry, dude. Okay. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Okay. So we're going to start with the foundations right away. Because there's a new player in town when it comes to microphones for live that's becoming more and more relevant. So 3 types of microphones are dynamic, right? What's a dynamic mic? Anyone? Give me a brand or a type of microphone that would be dynamic. Yeah, exactly, SM58. This would be a dynamic mic, I'm pretty sure. Second would be condenser. That would be like drum overheads. The black capsule mics I'm using on stage, those are condensers. And then the third one is ribbon. Who hasn't heard about ribbon mics or know what they really do? Okay, we got guys in the front. Cool, so that's fine. So let's go to dynamic here. So types, Shure 57, 58, a 52, which is the kick mic, the Shure kick mic. AKG 112, again, kick. 421, it's a little bit bigger, it's black. A lot of studio guys use it for toms because it just sounds awesome for that. Some Jesus Culture sometimes uses it. If you look at their DVDs, they'll have these big fat mics that are about this long. Those are called 421s. They just sound great, and obviously they're recording live, so they want to have great sounds. So general use is anything that's loud, high sound pressure, sound source such as electric guitar amp, close mic drums, etc. Right? A high transient. So a transient would be like the initial, like that snap, like you hear the crack, right? That's like the transient, not the tone, right? So if we put a mic to a snare, right, we would hope that microphone could take the pressure, right? That's different from loudness, pressure and loudness, right? Sometimes it feels like it hurts, but it's not that loud because the pressure, like low end, right? When you're right by subs and they're firing really low, you feel it more than you hear it, right? There's a difference between that. And so dynamic mics are awesome for high pressure sound sources, like kick drums, right? There's gonna be a lot of pressure there because you're nailing it. You hit that kick drum, there's a lot of pressure there. A condenser would most likely kind of overload, it'd fart. I don't know if you've ever heard put a condenser mic too close to something and just kind of, farts, and you're like, oh, I don't want to damage it. So dynamic mics are great for that kind of stuff. Sure, but we also use dynamic mics for vocals. So I wrote Shure 58 is, so as an exception, Shure 58 is probably the most used vocal mic in the world. And vocals are loud, but not as loud as a snare drum, right? So why would we use a 58 over, say, a KSM9, which is the other capsules I'm using, which are $1,000 capsule versus a $100 capsule? One reason would be feedback. Condensers are a lot more sensitive. So if you got a really, excited room, or if you have speakers behind the vocal mics, unless you're really crafty, most likely you're going to run into feedback issues. So, sometimes. So Jad, for example, he told me, hey, I don't want to use a condenser. I want a 58, and this is what I want. And so I said, okay. And it works for them, So kind of cool. So it doesn't really matter how expensive the microphone. It really just depends on the voice. Because I see people using the Shure, the 87, the Beta 87, and it's like, man, that's really bright and really annoying sounding, but they think because it's more expensive and it's a condenser, it's going to sound better. So pick your microphones according to the sound source and the voice, not according to the price and what you think it might do. Use your ears, because I think a lot of people just kind of, cool. So, yeah, dynamic mic, you can literally, the pro is throw it in front of anything, it's going to work. It might not be as sensitive as some other stuff, but odds are you got a couple of 57s, a couple of 58s, you can pretty much do anything. A lot of great recordings, use 57s, and it sounds cool. It's just how you use them. Dynamic microphones aren't the most transparent or sensitive microphones, right? So maybe you're not going to catch every little, there's a lot of people out there. Are there more chairs? Or,
we can find some. I'm just going to start packing people in here.
Come in.
There's 2 chairs right here. 2 people, the first
Who are 2 lucky winners, come to the front. You win a prize.
Sorry, I'll figure this out.
Yeah, no worries. Is everyone still tracking with me here? I tend to talk a little bit fast, but we have so much to do in not much time. And it's not even 1, so we're doing good, guys. This is awesome. Okay, so yeah, the con, it's not that transparent. Transparent would mean when you hear my voice, you can tell there's a microphone, right? You can hear the fact that this is a dynamic mic, I think, pretty sure. Or you can hear the tone, right? It doesn't sound natural. Versus if I had a condenser microphone, most likely it'd be a little bit it'd sound more like a voice coming at you, right? So that would, when I say transparent, that's what that means. It's more, or another way to put it is that dynamic microphones are generally more colored. Or just colored. Okay, condenser microphones, different types. The Shure Beta 87, that's the typical one that looks like a Shure 58. It's just a little skinnier body, and it's got a flat head. Does everyone know what a Shure 87 is? That's a pretty common condenser mic in churches these days, yeah? A Neumann KMS 105, that's the black version. It's really expensive. I believe 10th Avenue has one. The church, I don't know if anyone's here from 10th. Okay, yeah, you guys have a Neumann.
I have no idea.
Nice. A Neumann KM184, 10th also has one. Nice. Those are small pencil condensers, so different from a large diaphragm condenser. I'll get into that. An AKG 414, that's like I don't know, it doesn't matter. And the C1000, it's a typical kind of like tube condenser mic you usually see as an overhead. It's relatively inexpensive comparative to some of the other ones on this list. Great use would be vocal mic for sensitivity, drum overheads, even percussion, shaker, congas, tambourine. With congas you want to hear all the little hits, and it's pretty dynamic, right? If you use a 57, you might only hear the louder transients, or you might have to kind of really turn it up, and it won't be as natural sounding, right? So if you use congas, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, and guitar amps. Yeah. So as an exception, though, so I was talking about how condensers can't necessarily take as much sound pressure generally because they'll just fart. They're more sensitive. You don't really want to put them in front of a bass drum or something like that. But an exception, although they generally can't take as much sound pressure level (SPL) as a dynamic mic. Some condensers have a pad button and are able to withstand loud sound sources. So I'd say like -10, -20. An example of that in a very famous mic is the AKG 414, often used as overheads or in front of guitar amps because it's not the brightest microphone, and it has a pad, so you can drop it to -20. Therefore, you can put it in front of something loud, or else it's just going to be overloading your preamp. Make sense, right? So that's the exception. Everything I say is pretty general because you literally can break every rule almost and make it work. So don't feel like whatever I say is gospel. There's so many ways to get to the same location, and sometimes you just don't have the tools. Like I said, if you only have a couple 57s, a couple 50, there's ways to get there. You just got to be better. So, yes. Okay, so another thing, it needs phantom power, the little plus 48 thing. Everyone knows what phantom power is. Pretty simple, don't forget. Sometimes DIs as well. They're like, oh, I can't hear the bass. Guy's plugging away. It's like, check if it's a phantom power. Like some of the blue radial, I forget what not the JDI, whatever the other one is. Yeah, see, I'm an awesome sound guy. The blue one, please. I don't have time for that. Yeah, check phantom power, all that stuff. Same with your overheads aren't working. Check phantom power, always. So yeah, again, the pros will give you a transparent, realistic, and detailed image of the sound source, right? That's why we use them for overheads, because we want to hear a detailed image of the drum set, right? A complete, stereo pair over it. Why do we do that? Because we want to hear the whole kit, not just the kind of the spot mics. Yeah, so some of the cons, I already talked about some of the stuff. One of the issues is that it's going to have more top end. So it could be great for a female singer that you want to hear all her presence, like upper stuff. There's a lot of detail. But it might be too SE on a male singer. There's less top end on a male voice. So maybe that'll translate into So I find that Neumann mic I was talking about for guys is really annoying to me because it just has so much like top end for it just makes everything really SE. But there might be a guy out there that sounds awesome on it. So who knows? That's just me. Okay, now we're gonna talk about ribbon microphones. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is because companies are now making ribbon microphones that you can actually use live because, nice, I look like a nerd, thanks, Henrik Bischoff over there. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, guy. So a ribbon microphone opposed to a dynamic or a condenser microphone. Both of those generally have like a circle diaphragm. We've all seen them, it's like a little circle and it moves, creates an electrical impulse or whatever, and goes into a preamp, gets louder, we get sound. A ribbon is a strip in the microphone. It's different. I'm not sure. It was a lot of times in the 50s and 60s they used it. Those really fat microphones, they usually say AEA or RCA rather. You'll see Frank Sinatra singing into them. They're really almost like rectangle fat things. Really cool looking microphones. Those are ribbon microphones. I would say in the past 15 years they've kind of resurfaced, I guess, and become more popular with newer companies making them stronger. The issue with them is that they're really sensitive. You drop it once, if it's an old one, boom, that thing's blown. There goes $3,000 or whatever, or more, right? But the beautiful part about them is that they're really transparent on annoying sound sources, such as guitar amps, horns, stuff like that. And so, yeah. So I'm just going to read what I wrote for pros. On a sound source like an electric amp, they are very transparent sounding and take the harsh frequencies very well. Where maybe a Shure 57 would make horns sound honky, a ribbon mic would make it sound a lot more pleasing. Same with a guitar amp. When you mic it with a 57, sometimes it sounds really harsh sounding, where a ribbon mic would make it a little bit smoother. Yeah, so for example, at CLA we use the I didn't write it. Oh yeah. So at CLA, which ones do we use? We use no, did I not write it? There it is. We use the Shure KSM 313. or 313s. I don't know. I don't care. They're really awesome. We have a mono system, as a lot of churches do, because it's a semicircle. And so what we're finding, so I'm not mixing necessarily like left, right, trying to like, okay, I'm going to put the guitars out here, vocals here, spread everything apart to create space. I have to kind of mix vertically. Same with at Coastal right now. I'm mixing, from low end to top end and trying to stack everything that way so I can hear stuff. So the reason why we went with ribbon microphones besides instead of 57s is because it's a lot smoother. It kind of doesn't have as much of the kind of gross frequencies that would mask vocals in a mix. So we find that we can have guitars louder without them being in front of the vocals. When I say masking, that means frequencies are going over other frequencies and masking, right? So yeah. We sometimes have used them as drum overheads. Cymbals can be pretty annoying sounding, and sometimes a little harsh with condensers, so ribbons work as well. Come on. So the con is that you still have to treat them with respect. They're still ribbon microphones, even though Royer has one called the R121, but they have a live version of it, and then Shure has theirs. But you still got to treat them with respect because they're still ribbon microphones. You can't just chuck them like a 57 out of a plane and assume it's going to survive, Second con, these mics are not cheap. They're about $1,000 to $1,300. So those the Shure ones we use, I think, are at a discount. We got them for like $1,200 each. And so they sound great though, but you might have to save, or just kind of, I don't know. So. Okay, we're going to talk about gain staging really quickly here, because I feel like everyone does it, but I'm not sure you think about it. Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't. Maybe this is something you teach your techs, if you're the tech director, lots, and try to drill this into the head or not. So the first step in starting any mix is getting your gain right. The reason it's the first is because it sets up every part of the channel strip to work great or not. There's nothing more annoying to a musician than having their monitor levels change because the sound tech did not set his or her, I'm an idiot, gain right, and had to drop the gain to try to control the extra level, right? So you ask them, hey, can you sing? They sing kind of like, okay, Jesus, happy day. And then first song comes, boom, they're blasting you, they're peaking, and what do? You turn down the gain. Then they go, I can't hear anything, oh, what happened? Then they're mad at you, you just threw off the whole set, because you weren't smart enough to tell them, hey, can you just literally yell? Or like when they're like, no, go louder, and be able to anticipate and be like, no, they're actually not giving me, and coax it out of the musician or the vocalist. Be like, no, like literally give me what you're going to actually do. And sometimes you actually just have to tell them that, and they'll just finally, and then you're fine.
Or in the morning.
Yeah, or in the morning
They can't get going.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so for analog, this is super, this is not gospel, this is just what I think. I could be an idiot, I'm, not that old, but I think this works for me, So keep it in the yellow, and all should be fine. Too little, and you might not have enough level to send to monitors, or too much, and you'll be clipping the preamp, right? So sometimes I'm literally pinning it, and they're like, I can't hear myself, and what you're actually just doing is giving them noise. It's just going to turn into hiss eventually, right? You're going to start pushing it so much to the point where you're just introducing way too much noise into their signal, and you just get that hiss, right? Which is not cool. With digital, okay, who's got digital board at their church? Let's assume 50%. Let's go with 50%. That's a clean number. Digital's beautiful because we have so many more tools at our disposal. The issue is that no one's teaching how to use those tools within a digital realm. So gain staging in digital is just as, I would say even more important than analog, because analog is forgiving when you distort. It sounds okay. When digital overloads, it's just disgusting. It's it literally sounds like something broke. It doesn't sound like distortion. So I wrote, keep it kissing the yellow, so not really. So it kind of, you'll see the upper transients maybe go to +3, let's just call it that. So kiss the yellow instead of kissing the red like an analog. It's okay to be just a tiny bit in the red as long as it doesn't, peak out. Unlike an analog desk, 0 on a digital board means bad. It depends how you're metering. So if I say +3, it depends on what board you're using. Some boards go to 0. 0 is their theoretical, like where it stops. And when you hit 0, you hit digital distortion. So digital distortion is far from pleasing. So give yourself headroom for moments of passion. So when I mean headroom, it means the amount of signal that you can go past what you're kind of having the average, right? So if you had, say, 10 dB of headroom, the vocalist, if he just yells, it gives you that extra 10 dB for that moment. You had the headroom to contain it. If you didn't, and you have it too hot, you're going to hit distortion, right? With digital gain structure, the more headroom you give yourself, generally the clearer the board gets, or the board will sound. You can get pretty growly in a bad way if you have too many things hitting hard. So I don't know if you've noticed, who's got a Behringer board, the X32? Okay, so what other boards do you guys have, the digital boards? PreSonus, cool, that one. Cool. So, and I'm sure you guys are all familiar with how they growl. Sometimes it gets something's bad when you start kind of like, even hitting it too hard or this and that. With digital, like, because you can kind of push it harder on the output side of it instead of just like from the signal. And some guys will say like just hit it, in studio stuff. A lot of guys are like, yeah, just nail it, loud and proud. It's fine. You have all this theoretical headroom with 32-bit and all this crap. But it's like, I don't know, it just keep it really modest, honestly, and you can like make it up somewhere else because you want to keep digital nice and clean. You'll notice that everything will just sound more pleasing. Your EQs will sound sweeter. Compression will work normally, so. Exceptions, trick that I'm sure some of you know. On an analog desk, the red light doesn't fully mean bad. It means that you're overloading the preamps, which most likely results in distortion. A trick that some people do is to purposefully clip the kick and snare channels gently to add a bit of distortion to further fatten the sound, right? So when you add distortion, if you see a sound wave like a sine wave, when you add distortion, what you're doing is kind of squaring it off, right? So what that could result in, it's a gentle compression almost, right? So that's why some people do that. Distortion isn't necessarily bad. It's just another form of tonal shaping, right? So if you have an analog board and you want to just kind of add a little bit of spice and you don't really have compressors, clip the preamp a little bit, but know that you're doing it. Don't like smash it so you hear it kind of distorting. Whatever. You can use that, you don't have to. Some people do. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're going to go into the wild beast of EQ. What does it do? Should I use it? And EQ methods. Okay, who struggles with EQ? Be real. I don't want any heroes here because if you're going to be a hero, you're not going to learn anything. And I'm constantly learning every week so much. So EQ it's so difficult. And I've been doing sound stuff pretty aggressive, like trying to learn stuff for, this is my 7th year working and I did a year school, so yeah, 8 years almost, or just working too. Like pursuing sound stuff pretty aggressively. My wife gets mad because I wake up, I start researching, go to sleep, I'm researching, learning more and more and more because it is so unending. So always have that attitude of I don't know anything because there's another guy that knows more than me, but maybe I know something he doesn't. Maybe sitting back and forth. It's a community, right? We should be sharing tips and tricks, and we should always be trying to get better as a Christian community because the better we are, the better our churches can communicate, and hopefully the more people can get saved, discipled, and grow. So, and enter into worship. So, what does EQ do? It increases or decreases a selected frequency to resolve an issue or increase body or presence. Does that make sense? Right? Goes up and down. Why do we go down? Because maybe it's too muddy. Why do we go up? Maybe we just want a little bit more presence on the vocals, right? Pretty simple definition. That's mine. Didn't find that. So it's not, don't quote that and say, this is exactly what it is. Another way to describe it would be tone control, right? If you want to make it easier. Sometimes it just called tone. This beautiful Fender Passport here has a tone knob. It's pretty cool. Okay, Pro Tools time, I guess. Yes, okay. This is where What part of the EQ do you guys struggle with? Let's just. Do you struggle with understanding what frequencies are where? Do you struggle with why am I doing what? Like, I feel like a lot of people use EQs by experience and not because they know exactly what they're doing. So is that where kind of you guys are? Or, yeah, what's up?
Well, mostly I understand it as something to make the sound more clear. Like you want to
Sure.
have like a guitar somewhere on the sound, the vocals. Like you don't want them to
Yeah, overlap.
clash.
Yeah.
So I try to like do that.
Okay.
But like figuring out like
Sure.
what to select where or something.
So if I told you to give me hum 500 hertz, could you try to do that? Would you know where to start with that?
Hum 500 hertz.
Yeah. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying, like, would you know, like, in your head, you'd be like, okay, if I think of 500 hertz, or 250, for example, okay, get like.
Yeah, so 250 I think is like a high female end, I think, right?
No. Coastal. I had to dip 2 spots in that room.
2,500.
No, like
Oh,
250.
250.
250.
No,
Yeah.
that's low. That's
So like,
the,
right.
that's like the money part.
That's right there. That's like 250.
Okay.
So in the coastal room, 250 and then 500. It just builds up like crazy. I have those like crazy scooped in the room. Just anyways. So when show up, I have a spectrum analyzer, but first thing I know is trying to hear as soon as I put a song on. Okay, what are the frequencies? I'm trying to like connect my ears to my brain and tell me what decisions I have to make. Right. So anyways, so let's just go into Pro Tools. This is one of our, at CLA we have a Pro Tools rig, an HD rig, so we can record every session we have. So we can recall sessions later on in the week, go through stuff. The danger of recall when there's no band there is that you could be doing all this compression stuff on vocals and then you try it live and there's all this crazy feedback because you're making up gain and all this stuff. What source? Let's go to vocals for a second. We'll use this compressor. And then I have a wonderful plugin that can isolate different frequencies. We're just gonna quickly go through a female voice.
Isn't that clear?
So most of this is retract. Here I'll just like the vocals, but the rest is all live. So you can kind of see this is her voice. You can. Okay, so now let's go through and solo her. Every time I'm watching a tutorial and someone takes forever doing stuff like this, where you're trying to like mute stuff, I'm always like, hurry up, you're such an idiot. And then when I have to do it, I'm just like, seriously, it takes that long? It actually does, so now I'm gonna have more grace. And there's some auto tunes that you hear a little something. So that's a 250. So she's decently fine there. Because it's a girl. If it was a guy, it'd be a different story. Let's go a little higher. Let's go to 400. So still pretty fine, but try to memorize this. Like, think about this. Maybe write notes. Or I'm going to start having more issues and more around 800. Got to keep those things authentic, you know what I'm saying?
You stretched out.
So this is now 1,000 or 1K. Sounds like a radio, right? That radio effect that people do on like punk rock records. You know, with the megaphone. Okay, everyone always says vocal presence lives at 3K. Who's heard that? Nobody. When people, okay, vocal presence or sibilant or what's the word I'm looking for? The understandability, the vocal.
Intelligibility?
Whatever, sure, let's call it that. Everyone always says it's there. Here, let's just listen to what that frequency sounds like. Because every chart school I went to says that. Everyone says that. Maybe you guys haven't heard that. I have. So this is what it sounds like. That's where people tell you to boost, a lot of charts, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it depends on the vocals, right? Let's go a little higher to 5.5. So you guys are boosting probably over that, and there's not much voice getting there, right?
No.
Let's go higher, because I can see stuff happening higher. Okay, 8. Right, obviously these speakers are not going to like perfectly replicate it. And then let's go to 10, because let's go to 12, because that's generally where the high frequency boost is. The shelves are on your EQs. I'm sorry if this is hurting anyone's ears. So there's not much there, right? But we boost there a lot.
But doesn't that bring possibility of feedback at the same time?
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. So, yeah, I'm starting to sound like my sound tech at my church. Okay. So why would I boost though that high on a vocal?
Sparkle.
Exactly. So maybe there's not necessarily a lot of tone there, but there is a lot of air. That's what they call like air. Just let's take this. You bring that up a bit.
The skies.
I'll do it as the shelf because that's most likely.
Your great power shines throughout the night.
That's off.
Oh,
This is on.
day by day.
You hear the presence that's added, right? Sounds kind of cool, especially on a girl voice. Danger is feedback. Let's just go to 100 hertz here for a second.
You stretched out the skies.
Yeah, that's right.
Your great.
So on a girl vocal, there's pretty much nothing there. So we all have high pass filters or low cuts or whatever. So what I do first thing on anything that doesn't have low end, I usually cut it right there. Does this make sense graphically if you're looking at this? Obviously it looks different from your boards. So whenever you see like a filter, like a LF filter, right? Bring it in to like at least 100 because all you're doing is introducing like low end, like mud and rumble. When you have all that, anything under 100 hertz across the whole board, even if there's nothing there, you're still introducing mud. As soon as you clean that up, the whole room will open up. Like I was doing sound at the Village, at the Bell Center. Awesome, everything. Really nice DMB rig. But to my ear, I just felt like there was just like a lot of rumble happening. Like the room was just kind of, and it's like, not concrete, but like, it's a pretty open room. And then I just went through stuff. I went through the bass, actually, the first thing I did, and then brought that filter probably up to like 60 or 70. Because all that low end energy isn't translating to tone, but it's just like that pressure I was talking about, right? You just hear this, you just kind of just creates this energy that's doing absolutely nothing. So don't have that low end if you don't need. Yeah.
Just what would you do if an instrument that has a wide range, like let's say piano, where you have like
Sure.
a lot of high but also low sometimes. Sometimes that I find that tricky to get right.
Absolutely. I hate the piano. It is so hard. That's not a joke. Piano is so difficult.
Like I also
You know what's even worse than a piano? A piano with a pad. Holy moly! It's just you just hear that in a room, just kind of like living there. It's like at CLA. It's as if it's like sometimes it's like in the key of A on the like lower octave, probably like A3 or A2 around there. It is like there's like a room mode there, and it's just like, and our room is set up really nice. And it is so annoying. So often I just filter up to that point where I hear it kind of go away and then bring it back a little bit. Because it's just like, so let's listen to the piano then. Let's go through it. So this is the Nord. Most likely you guys have a Nord. If you don't, then you're not, never mind, kidding. I'm kidding, I don't, Nords or whatever, they're so expensive, they're stupid. Okay, let's see this little bump here. So 250, that beautiful, quite a bit of that, right? Let's go lower. Still a little bit there. Not much at 40 hertz. Not much lives there besides maybe kick and bass. 500. Okay, there's some of it. That sounds like something like a piano still, right? That sounds like the body of a piano. Let's go a little higher. So this is 1500. Sounds pretty nice, you know, it sounds like the piano. So I'm just doing this, you guys, when you're boosting, you know what you're boosting if you feel like you can't hear, right? We're just trying to create, let's just say, when we hear something, what you're trying to do is kind of create a better image of it to your ears. You're not trying to make everything sound 100%, you're trying to make everything blend together, but sometimes pianos just don't have enough presence. Where do you boost? So that's why I'm going, and this is obviously relative to this room, this sound system, this awesome sound, the Fender Passport, this sound system. It's very good. So also know that every room, every place, things will shift a bit because not every room is perfect. So
How many people are in it and everything else?
yeah, exactly. And you have to anticipate. So I'm just trying to give you some references so you know in your ear, write down, oh hey, the piano still sounded okay at, 1500. Sounds okay. A little higher, let's go to 3. Oops, where is it? How many times do we boost past that frequency? A lot. And
Just out of curiosity, are you saying you should have a low cut on every frequency? Obviously different frequencies depending on the instrument, but are you suggesting everyone should have a low cut at the bottom?
yes, unless it's bass or kick.
Yep.
Or a track that would have like a bass drop, or would be another instrument.
But even a bass you might low cut if you're
I
getting a lot of hum in the room. Or
totally. If I have a variable cut, like it's not just like a button that's the 80 hertz down, the little at the top of a. If you have an analog board, that's God bless you. That's what you have. Work with it. But if you have a variable one, I think they usually go up to like 400. Obviously, that's really high. But yeah, with bass. So a trick I like to do is for live, not studio. Well, it depends. Is keep the bass drum a little lower. Create it as more of like a low end transient hit, like right. Obviously, the Fender Passport here can't faithfully replicate what I'm trying to do, but you're more trying to go for the low transient, right? Again, I explained the transient is like that click, not the tone. It's the click or the smack or whatever you want to call it. I want to get that low thump out of the kick and then raise the bass a little bit higher, so then the bass is more taking the low tone and the kick is taking the low thump, right? You don't want them having kind of like fighting with each other, because all that bass guitar is going to do is muddy up your kick sound, or vice versa, right? Your kick sound is so big that you can't hear the bass because you're pushing all the same frequencies. And I'm sure you guys have run into issue where it's like you start turning up the bass, where's my kick, whatever, right?
What are your thoughts on the sub kick?
I brought one, but I was told that I'm in a heritage building, so I shouldn't use it. No, I'm kidding.
I just acquired one recently. I was just
Sure.
curious what your thoughts are.
What church was I at? I was at Peace Portal. Anyone from there? No. I was just helping out the team there. They had asked me to come in to just practically go through mix. They were just saying, hey, we're starting to run tracks. Everything, the genres are changing. We just don't know how to fully mix this new genre of worship music, right? Young and free, all that stuff. You will eventually start mixing young and free, Christian karaoke, dance tracks. It is just Christian karaoke. Let's be clear. I said that to someone at my church, or Omega Levine, do you know the guy from Parachute Band? So he came with 2 pieces, him and a drummer, and then a bunch of backing tracks, and just feeding into the board. And I accidentally called it Christian karaoke, and I think I offended him. But it is. So, anyways.
You're not wrong.
No, that's cool. It is funny. It gets me pumped up, right? Okay, back to the sub kick. So they have a sub kick there, and I believe a D6, an Audix D6. That's a very common duo, right? Sub kick has lots of low end. D6 has a lot of nice click. It's a very natural, transparent click for being a dynamic mic, right? Shure 52 has kind of a weird, unnatural sounding like top end click. Here, I'm just gonna explain it quickly because I have a D6 here. One sec, let me just take everything off. That's what a D6 sounds like. So if you're ever looking for a clicky bass or kick drum mic, sounds nice, right? But the issue is that it doesn't have a lot of like low mids, like a 52 or whatever. Anyway, so you would probably get a sub kick. So they have one, and I'm turning it up. I'm like, well, it's not really, kind of disappearing. And I bring it back, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of there. So I'll kind of go back and forth. I'm just trying to figure out, like, oh, what's wrong? But the one thing I wasn't thinking about is that kick mic was pretty far into the kick bass drum, right? Sometimes you have it on the outside, sometimes you place it pretty in there, and you have a sub kick. What would be an issue, a foreseeable issue that you would see happening between those two microphones? Because whenever you mic something twice, what's the biggest thing you have to think about? Phase, right? That precious phase button. So eventually I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Hit the phase button, boom, they're out of phase. Huge, like, I'm pretty sure I popped the subs a little. I was like, oh, brought it back down, right? So while one microphone was firing positive, right? Everyone understand? Positive means your speaker's coming towards you. Negative means it's going away from you. So one's going up while the sub kick's hitting and it's going negative. So it's canceling out, right? So you lose tone. When your phase is out, you lose your tone. And I feel like a lot of people get sub kicks, don't think about that because it's not a snare drum, right? You know, top and bottom you switch it because you want them to be moving together. So a long answer to say sub kicks are awesome if you're thinking about phase, if your subs can handle it. Don't go too low because you won't hear it if your subs can't really do it. Try to tone shape, right? Try to do your low end according to where your subs, like the crossover is, or where your subs are firing at. So if your subs fire like 80, that's where they're like prime. EQ stuff to 80 or like, don't go too low because then it's just going to just take away energy and power because low end uses up so much of the space. So sub kicks can be awesome if the rig can take it.
Is it just another trendy fad thing, or what is it?
I think it's cool. So it's just a reverse speaker, right? And Yamaha put it in a fancy like drum thing.
Yeah.
People have been doing it forever. It's awesome if your system can take it. If not, it's all it's doing is low end takes so much more energy to move, right? So all you're doing is take away precious like power away from speakers, right? So you're just using up a lot of that energy for the low end that you can't even hear. So sub kicks are cool if you got a good system. If not, just use your kick mic and then try to find in the low end where that sweet spot is. Maybe it's 60. I think at CLA it's 57 hertz. That's where it goes like just nails really hard. Maybe it's 80. Maybe it's 100 because you don't have much low end, right? Try to find that sweet spot of low end where you get the maximum kind of impact. Does that make sense, everybody? Anyone else kind of heard of sub kicks? Yeah? Kind of a fad, kind of not. I don't know. Kind of cool, kind of not. I don't know. So yeah, piano. Yeah, I would take away most low end. Pianos have a lot of energy. The reason why I say they're so difficult is because their tonal range is so freaking huge. So here, I'll show you a couple of tricks that I do. Same thing when you have like a really nice, someone donates a Steinway because their grandpa died and they had $100,000. Awesome. That happened at CLA. That's so insensitive, I understand, but that's what happens. So we have this beautiful Steinway, right? This thing's awesome. But the thing with the Steinway is that it's so colorful and beautiful. How do you throw that in a modern mix? Right? What do you do with that? It's just, if it's a concert, sure. Open that puppy up and I'll just listen. It's beautiful. But you try to throw that in a modern worship context. And mic, right? And we have DPA mics. We have nice, right? Takes up so much room. We don't even use it that much unless it's something like a low key, like a whatever. So piano's very difficult. So let's here I use a different EQ that's probably more similar looking to what you would use. Does everyone know what Pro Tools is? Yes? Pro Tools is the quote-unquote industry standard for music recording. Logic is something a lot of people use. I don't think it sounds as good. Sorry. But I don't know, I kind of hate Pro Tools as well because Avid sucks. That's the company that owns them. So, all that to say, let's listen to this piano. You hear that wonderful pad under it? Right? We're told more pads, more pads. Yeah, it sounds great. It just adds muddiness. Just play piano better. That's not a joke. That's just kindly tell people to just be better. Okay, so I'm bringing up the high pass filter. 80. Okay, this is off. You hear all that mud? I'm going to bring it now to 80, which is the analog button generally. Okay, so that cleaned it up a good amount. So if that's all you have, right there, you won the battle a little bit. Let's bring it higher. 160, that's pretty high. Just wait, don't you wait, sir. You don't. So, it's losing body, right? Losing it. But we have those pads. Luckily, because I told her not to have it that loud, but most of the time it's sometimes 50-50 piano pad, right? So it gets really annoying. So 200, let's just keep it at 200 and see what happens after. So now I'm adding a compressor. I'm running out of time, and I'm going to go into compression really fast here. So what I'm trying to do is now compress it to add energy back into it, because I've lost a lot of the body and power out of it on purpose, because I'm trying to throw other stuff there. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to compress it and hopefully restore some of the energy back. So.
Stand still at your touch, empty heart.
Kind of still sounds fine. I'm going to take everything off and you'll hear it. Off. It sounds more like a piano. But look how much room it's taking. Plugins are back in. So it almost gets clearer. But I'm taking all this awesome stuff away. So just because it may be not, like I said, you're not trying to get everything to 100. You're trying to get to your mix to 100. But sometimes you do have to add clarity to get more clarity. EQ to add clarity is what I was trying to say. What's the common theme with pretty much everything I've been talking about EQ here, besides just adding presence? I'm taking away frequencies. What's the first thing people do when they can't hear something or trying to fix it? They add frequencies. What are you doing? You're masking other sounds, and sometimes frequencies will mask upon or over other stuff, and it'll take up to 2 to 3 seconds for your ear to like have it go away, just because it. Like the sound maybe lasted a second. It's your ears have to adjust, and they're trying to like figure stuff out. So know that when you're adding stuff, you're just throwing more dirt on everything. So my favorite style of EQing would be called subtractive EQing method. So that's my EQ method that I was taught. I think you should always take away first before you add. But before you take away, maybe just turn it down, because effectively all you're doing with a fader is turning the whole EQ down, right? Imagine like each fader or each band on your EQ is just a fader, right? So sometimes I'll go to someone's board and they have every EQ knob turned up by 3-4 dB. Literally, you should have just turned up the fader by 3 dB. You would have done the same thing. Yeah. Obviously, that's pretty general. I'm being cheeky here on purpose. But imagine each band, the gain knob is a fader, right? So okay, this piano's maybe you have an analog board and you just can't get the thing you don't have the precision of digital. Turn it down a little bit, try to figure it out, or add some upper mids, right? Remember how 1500 still sounded like a piano? Maybe add some of that and then turn it down, right? Slot it. Just add a little bit and then bring it down. So the rest of the frequencies, because all you're trying to do is get things out of the way so vocals can be clear. Why are vocals so important in a church aspect? Those vocals are singing the words. Hopefully those words will lead to someone's heart, and someone's heart will say, I want Jesus. They'll listen to the preacher and get saved or grow and be discipled, right? That's why vocals are important. Not the bass drum, not electrics, not pianos, not anything. That's why in church we want vocals to be as clear as possible, because that will communicate to people the gospel, right? I'm not trying to sound too spiritual, but literally, these are things you should be thinking about. How can I make this as clear as possible so ministry can be done? Because that's your job, Okay. Any other questions on EQ? I'm literally running as fast as possible here because we don't have tons of time. And I understand that I'm going to be overgeneralizing some stuff, and what works for me might not work for you or your place, but just, yeah, you had a question?
We're trying to get into the Behringer new 32 that's got a nice, decent display and stuff like that. And
yeah.
We came from an analog board.
Yeah.
And then trying to run the EQ, trying to understand how where I'm gonna put my boost in that. It's like you said, it's not easy, man. I'm having a hard time to clean that up and make it work. I mean, low cuts that's easy enough, but trying to get the boosts right and that kind of thing, it's a real challenge.
Yeah, so let's quickly go to so much. Let's just go to a kick drum really fast. Even though it's not the greatest place to do it because I don't have a ton of low end. So that's the bass drum. You can actually sounds pretty nice naturally. It's not decompression yet. So what am I doing? So this is pretty similar to a digital EQ that you will have on a Behringer, Allen E. Heath board, whatever, like any digital live board. So what am I doing? Why do I have a high pass filter here? This is a trick I do to make the EQ do what I want it to do. Ultimately, EQs will be limited. So what do? You kind of screw with them until they do exactly what you want them to do. So we do a high boost. Most of the time, they'll start as a shelf, right? Okay. I can't believe I forgot this. Different EQ shapes. This is a shelf. Why is it called a shelf? What does it look like?
Shelf.
It looks like I just thought you could place something on it, right? Go here. What's this kind of look like? Yeah, you can call it slope. It's called the bell curve, right? Because it kind of looks like a bell. Taco Bell, right? So often we'll do this. So we'll say, okay, let's go CLA rules here. 57, right? Cool. What else am I adding though? A lot of the low crap that our speakers most likely cannot handle. So what I do, because I also want to make sure that my low end is super clean at all points, I'll engage the high pass filter and I'll sometimes, depending on how steep I want my bump to be, and depends how flexible your Q, so how wide. So if your Q goes to like nothing, so 0 for example, it's gonna be really fast. But if it's like Q of 8, have you seen that in your EQs?
Yeah.
It says a Q, right? What does that do? 1 is pretty wide. The higher the number, the narrower the bell or the band, or whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of people don't know what that is. They see it and they're like, ugh. So, I like for bass drums for low end, probably realistically, in everything I say, I usually break my own rules because, I don't know, I'm rebellious. So whatever I say, don't have to copy this. So, so I'll do a nice boost there. You hear that? Notice how much tighter it is without compression. Off. You hear all that. You hear all that low movement. Here. On. It's just a tighter sounding low end, right? So taking away low end doesn't mean you're taking away low end. You're just clearing up low end. Why do I have such precious? So
But you're dropping that low way up, aren't you? Or way down, aren't you?
it's I have it to 40.
Yeah.
I had it at 39, but I moved it to 40.
Yeah.
Just because I know these speakers probably can't go that low, so I'm going to bring up my tone. I'm going to try to tone shape. We're in low end. Okay, let's move fast. Let's keep on going. There's a lot of mud. It doesn't necessarily actually sound that bad, but because I'm going to do what most bass drums would have a lot of crap there. So I'm going to make the Q wider. Q, everyone. Yeah. Oop. Oh, it got a lot tighter again. Open it up. It's kind of floppy, which it doesn't necessarily sound bad within the context of a mix. Because that could sound really stale and boring, right? Depending on your room. If it doesn't have a lot of low end, you're just going to get thump and it's going to sound a little thin. So add to taste. I think in this room that sounds nice. Why do I have some top end off? Really nice, but what else is coming through? People never think about this. Hi-hat, cymbals. Let me go to the end when he's crushing it. And this is a great drummer. This is Stefan Tavares. He's like a freaking robot. Literally, he plays perfect every time, and it's wonderful to mix him because he's super. Like everything is say like a 75% out of 100 hit, you know? He's never really hitting 100. He's never really going under 60%. Like it's always just within a certain range. So this kick mic. I didn't know I had overheads coming from kicks. So you say, hey, why are cymbals getting louder? Because this is what I've seen so much. And in fact, I did this the other day because someone was doing it and I didn't want to correct them. This is what the guy had. And the guy was a sound guy too, which is awesome. So a cue for a shelf, very important. So if it's super low, so let's put it to 1, that's what it'll look like. So it's like a very average slope, whatever, like a slow go. The higher you go, the more of a wall that happens. So know that. We don't really have time to go into it. Okay, so this is what a lot of people do. I'll say, okay, I need more click. I'm sure you've all done it. I've done it. I did it. It was fine. We're in a controlled environment where you don't hear the cymbals acoustically, but this is what you're doing. Kind of useless. So what I mean about the drummer, literally there's no compression on it, and the kick, all the hits are almost the same. So I think that's more than enough top end. There's still a lot of click there. Oops. Sorry guys. Lots of click. So anyways, that's just quick bass drum, snare drum. Let's move super quickly here. I don't have my high pass. There's not a lot happening under 100 hertz on a snare unless you got an 8-inch snare, 14 by 8 snare, like a big Canon. Some guys do have them. You'll get a lot of tone. If you got like a normal snare that's like a 5-inch snare, that's pretty standard, like a Yamaha snare, not very deep. There's really not a lot of low end, and a lot of guys push a lot of low end. What are you doing? You're muddying up your kick, right? This is a 6-inch sonar snare. So I'm trying to find where it kind of thumps. Okay, right there, 180. So that's I think it's 6.5-inch snare. So it's a pretty big snare. So that's a decent snare, and it's decently low tuned. Actually, this is a Black Beauty. So this is a steel snare that was 6.5 inches deep, which is probably a little bit bigger than most people's snares that they'll have at their church. Don't boost so low. Try to find where the tone lives in your snare. Don't just say I'm going to boost at a low frequency. Sweep it a little bit. Find where that snare is living. Totally depends where it's tuned as well, right? Drum tuning is half your EQ right there, right? Kick sounds like crap. Tell the drummer to figure out how to tune it. If he doesn't know, learn yourself. Drum tuning, as soon as I go to any place, I go straight to the drums, unless the drummer seems proficient at tuning, and I tune it myself. Because your drums are going to sound like poop if they're not tuned right. What do I mean by tuning? Making sure the drum is giving me one note, not two, right? Sometimes you hear like, ooh, or like different things like that, right? You're not going to fix that with a gate or EQ. You're going to fix it by tuning it first, right? I'm done? I got 10 minutes, sir.
Sorry. Yeah,
Almost done, okay. Oh, we didn't get into compression. Okay, I'm going to go really fast into compression. Let's go into vocals. I'm going to do it with this compressor that all you X32 guys would have. You've seen something that looks like this? This is not the greatest model. I'm using like a stock one because I don't want to be using anything fancy you won't have. It's called an 1176. It'll be called maybe like a black 76. I don't know what the X32 will call it. Most people will have this compressor. It's got an input and output knob, different from a traditional compressor, which has a threshold, attack, release. So I'm pretty sure most boards will have, emulation of this. I love this on vocals. Avid boards have them. So if you have an Avid board, you will have the BF76. So this is vocals.
You can say
Let's go to the verse, so it's not pinning it. Or
you are strong.
it's off.
Jesus, our hope and our salvation. You are the Lord of all.
Listen how much energy happens as soon as you compress it, right? I'm going to do it again.
You
Off.
are strong. Jesus, our hope
On.
and our salvation. You are the
I can hear the compression, right? I'm not trying to compress naturally. I'm compressing as an effect. There's a difference between utility EQing and compression, and EQing as an effect, or compressing as an effect. What I'm doing, and let's just quickly go because I'm dead in water, I guess now. Oh, let's just watch this video. Sorry, Peter, I'm just gonna do this. Oh, no, okay. I have no, can you guys see this? Sorry, my internet's dead, so can you guys read that? Okay, so quick tip, compression settings. The attack, I don't have time to explain it, but so attack anywhere from 20 to 40 milliseconds means that it's going to take 20 to 40 milliseconds for a compressor to hit. Means it's not going to compress. So if hit happens, 20 to 40 milliseconds after that hit happens, the compressor grabs on. Why wouldn't I put that compressor to 0 or like 1 millisecond? Because then I'm getting rid of my click, right? So let's go back to this bass drum. Oh man, Peter, you're killing me. I'm going to quickly show you what, and the kick drum is an awesome example of what a compressor does because it, so I'm going to put it to probably a setting that most of you guys would have it at, probably stock. So I'm going to put it to 1 millisecond and say 100 millisecond release. Right? So I'm going to make it up so you... Right, what's happening? Low end's disappearing. Click. Sounds like crap, right? A lot of people compress it with those settings because that's what it came with. They're not going to change it. So that means that it's taking the compressor 1 millisecond to compress that signal. I'm going to now delay the attack. Attack means the amount of milliseconds before that compressor hits. I'm going to put it to, let's start at 20 and then see where it totally depends with every drum. And I'm going to slow down the release. The release is how long the compressor holds on for. So at this point, the compressor is going to compress for 100 milliseconds. Might be a little long, depending on the song. I'm going to drop it to about 35. Off. Just a little bit more energy. Let's slow it down a bit more. There's more drum there. 40 milliseconds. Okay, do you guys hear the difference? So what I did is I slowed down the compressor by 40 milliseconds. So that 40 milliseconds allowed the drum to hit, and then I'm compressing the body of it and then making up the gain on the body of the compression, right? So what in fact that will be doing is increasing the amount of power behind the bass drum vocalist, right? So what I'm doing with the vocalist, I'm allowing the first parts of her vocal to come through, but then compressing the rest of it. What's that going to do? Increase. So if the waveform's like a, like this, so it's big, right? The initial transient's big, and then it kind of peters off. All I'm doing is raising the end, so the rest is all the same level, and allowing the initial peak to stay normal. That will result in natural sounding compression. Versus if you have very quick compression, it'll sound unnatural, sound compressed, right? Why would you want really quick compression on a snare drum? Maybe your drummer's really wild. You want to get rid of some of those peaks because they're getting too loud, right? That's as a utility, not as an effect, right? I wouldn't do that because I have a controlled environment for drums, but some churches need that. So that's not a bad thing. It'd be a utility versus an effect. Does everyone kind of understand that? And, okay, so I guess I'm done. We'll just wait till Peter comes back. Any questions I can answer in 30 seconds? I've said a lot, and yeah.
What happened to the keyboard this morning in the worship set?
For some reason, he didn't patch something in his main stage because he was trying to get fancy, and I was only getting one channel, and it just was adding mud. So I made a decision to just take it away, right? Because it's adding mud. Yep.
Any quick tips for when you EQ pre-service and then all the people come in and the mix gets?
Yeah, don't carve out too much. Carve out safely, assuming that people will come in and kind of help the hollowness of the room, and then either take away or add to taste, so you're not putting yourself in a hole, or it sounds really thin, or really bright, or too dull. Yeah, the back.
Where would I start with EQing the overall room?
Overall room. So use your ears, right? So that's about 250. Let's just assume that. So start learning your tones. As soon as I walk into Coastal, I put it on a track that I know really well in my car, in my studio. I just know the song. And I start walking around the room and like, what's building up here? Okay, so 250 is a huge buildup. What else? I brought a spectrum analyzer, you know, the little, you see all the frequencies boosting. I saw that 500 was also a huge issue. And I try to flatten out the room. And I leave a little, like I sweeten the top end a bit, right? I'm not going for flat fully. And I try to sweeten it because whatever. But yeah, so you walk around the room with a track that you know and try to figure out where the problem spots are. That's a good way to start. Don't be aggressive though. Yeah, you want to ask?
John, 2 electrics. Stacking 2 electrics. I've gotten that question.
So 2 electrics and a mono mix. What do you do? So figure out who's doing rhythm, who's doing lead. It's as simple as turning one down. I'm not kidding, literally. And like have the other one there as support, so it's loud enough that it's adding body, right, rhythm, and leads clear enough that it's not masking vocals, and switch them if needed. Don't have them both at 100. You can't pan them, so figure out who needs to be there and won't take away from the vocal. It's literally that easy. Or EQ, go to 3K, right, 3 to 5, do a gentle, really wide Q, and take away by maybe 1 or 2 dB, because even though maybe it won't make the electric sound better, it will get out of the way of the vocals. Right? Gentle EQ dip, yeah.
Backup vocals.
Yeah, backup vocals are dangerous because there are a lot more voices and you're adding more frequencies, a lot more mud. Depends on their voices, but I would say leave them pretty flat. Don't make them too fancy sounding, and then just carve out some of the low mids so it gets out of the way out of the lead. And maybe don't put that many effects on them. Right? So if you can't hear reverb, don't try adding more reverb. Increase the pre-delay, which means that you're, again, slowing that tack down. Means that it takes, like, say, 15 millisecond pre-delay on a reverb will allow you to hear the reverb more because it just takes a little bit longer, and you can shorten the length of the reverb, which will make it clearer, right? So that's a quick tip that actually helps so fast with reverb. Shorten your reverb down to like 1.6, 1.8 seconds, and bring up your pre-delay to like 15 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds out. You'll hear the reverb way faster without as much of it. Yep.
Any advice for EQing strings like a violin or cello or?
Ooh, that's difficult.
Your presence lives around 5K. Bring that up a little bit. Take away the low end because you're just going to be adding mud. And move the microphone until it sounds good. Because they're so unique, right? So literally just move the mic, have someone move it for you and be like, oh, that sounds really good right there. Keep the microphone there. And try not to EQ as much as just move. If it's not sounding good, move the microphone first before you EQ as well. So, cool guys. Okay, we're done. Thank you so much for coming.